No one wanted to marry the orphan girl, until a poor rancher gave her his last name and claimed her. Leela had always known life as a struggle. From the very beginning, she had grown up without the warmth of a mother's hug or the steady guidance of a father's hand. She was an orphan, left to live with distant relatives who only tolerated her presence because they had no choice. Her small village was a quiet, dusty place, where everyone seemed to know each other's business, and where gossip traveled faster than the wind. Leela, despite her quiet nature, could feel the sharp sting of people's whispers every time she walked past them. She learned early that kindness and hard work were not always rewarded, and that life often demanded resilience from those who could least afford to be strong. Every morning, Leela would wake before the sun rose, pulling on her worn-out shoes and heading out to help her relatives with chores. She would sweep the yard, carry water from the distant well, and tend to the small vegetable garden that barely fed them. The work was exhausting, but she endured it silently, not because she enjoyed it, but because she knew there was no one else to do it. The villagers often watched her with a mixture of pity and judgment. Some shook their heads and whispered that she would never find a husband because she had no family to support her and no wealth to offer. Others avoided her entirely, afraid that associating with an orphan would bring misfortune to their own children. Leela overheard some of these conversations, and though her heart hurt, she never allowed anger to take over. Instead, she focused on doing her work quietly, hoping that one day someone would see the good in her. School had been a brief, bright spot in her early years. Leela loved learning. She loved the way letters could form words and how words could open doors to new worlds. Her teachers had often praised her intelligence and curiosity, but even here she faced obstacles. While other children were encouraged by their families to pursue their dreams, Leela had no one to cheer her on. She attended school because she wanted to, not because anyone believed she was capable of success. When she excelled in her studies, some villagers muttered that it was a waste of talent on a girl with no future. Still, she persevered, determined to make the most of what little opportunities she had. Despite the hardships, Leela was not bitter. She had a gentle spirit and a kind heart that refused to harden under the pressure of rejection. She would help the younger children in the village with their lessons, share her food with hungry neighbors, and comfort anyone who was lonely or in pain. People sometimes took advantage of her generosity, but she never let it dampen her willingness to care for others. In her heart, Leela believed that goodness mattered more than wealth, and that love and kindness were more valuable than gold. However, as Leela grew older, the world around her seemed increasingly harsh. The whispers became louder, and the glances sharper. Young men who might have once shown interest in her were now discouraged by their families, told that marrying an orphan was a risk not worth taking. Some girls her age were celebrated for their beauty, wealth, or social connections, while Leela remained overlooked, as if her very existence were invisible. Each rejection left a small scar on her heart, and the loneliness she felt sometimes seemed unbearable. Yet she did not allow herself to despair completely. She carried on day after day, finding solace in small joys, the smell of freshly baked bread, the warmth of the sun on her face, the quiet moments by the river where she could dream of a life beyond the village. Her relatives, though not cruel, offered little support. They expected her to work without complaint, to maintain the household, and to remain unseen. They rarely spoke words of encouragement or recognition. Leela learned to find strength within herself, discovering that the world might not always offer love or acceptance, but she could choose to remain kind and true to herself regardless. She often spent nights lying on her small cot, staring at the ceiling and imagining what it would be like to be truly loved, to be chosen not for what she could provide, but for who she was. These dreams became her private refuge, a place where hope still lived, even when the village seemed determined to crush it. Though life was harsh, Leela found beauty in simple things. She loved the way flowers bloomed along the edges of the fields, how the river sparkled in the sunlight, and how the sky could turn shades of pink and gold at dawn. These small wonders reminded her that the world held more than cruelty and rejection. She would often take long walks, feeling the wind on her face and imagining distant places where kindness was abundant, and where people valued one another not for wealth or status, but for the heart. These moments gave her courage, a quiet strength that allowed her to face each day with determination. But not every day was gentle. Villagers sometimes mocked her openly, calling her the unlucky girl or whispering that no man would ever want to marry her. Children avoided playing with her, fearing the social disapproval of their parents. Even adults, who might have offered guidance or support, turned away, unwilling to associate with someone they considered doomed by circumstance. It was a lonely life, but Leela bore it with dignity. She learned that the absence of love from others did not diminish her own capacity to give love and care. One particular moment stayed with her. During a festival in the village, when everyone was celebrating marriages, births, and other happy occasions, Leela watched from the sidelines. Couples laughed together, families embraced, and friends shared gifts. She felt a pang of longing, a deep ache for acceptance and belonging. Yet even in that moment, she did not give up hope. She told herself that if she continued to be true to her heart, if she continued to work hard and remain kind, then perhaps one day, someone would see her for who she truly was. Her resilience became her defining feature. While others were quick to judge and dismiss, Leela quietly proved her worth every day through her actions. She cared for animals, tended the gardens, helped neighbors in need, and offered comfort to anyone who was lonely. Slowly, though she did not realize it, she was building a reputation, not of wealth or status, but of character. Those who truly paid attention began to notice her unwavering spirit, her gentle nature, and her willingness to give without expecting anything in return. Even in the face of rejection and isolation, Leela maintained hope. She dreamed of a future where she would be loved, where she would have a home filled with warmth and acceptance. She imagined a life where her kindness would be recognized, not overlooked. Though life had not been kind to her so far, she refused to let bitterness take root. She believed that every person had a chance to find love and belonging, and she held on to that belief fiercely, even when it seemed the rest of the world had given up on her. By the end of the first chapter of her life, Leela was still an orphan, still overlooked by most of the village, and still facing an uncertain future. Yet she carried herself with quiet dignity and unwavering hope. Her heart, though scarred by rejection, remained open. She was patient, gentle, and resilient, waiting for the day when someone might see past her circumstances and recognize the extraordinary person she truly was. And little did she know, that day was closer than she could have ever imagined. Leela's story was just beginning. The struggles of her past had shaped her, but they had not broken her. She was a young girl with dreams, courage, and a heart that refused to harden. And sometimes it is precisely this kind of heart, one that has faced hardship yet remained tender, that the world cannot help but notice. Life in the village continued quietly, with its dusty roads, small houses, and the constant rhythm of work and chores. Leela's days were full of responsibilities, yet her heart remained hopeful. She still dreamed of a life where someone would see her true worth, beyond the whispers of the villagers and the shadow of her orphan status. Little did she know, her life was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would begin with the arrival of a humble man who saw her differently than anyone else had. Tom was a young rancher from a neighboring village. He was not wealthy and his possessions were few, but he was known for his honesty, kindness, and unwavering integrity. Unlike the other villagers, he never judged people by their status or wealth. He believed that true worth was measured by the heart and by the way a person treated others. His small ranch was modest, with a few cows, some chickens, and a humble house, yet it was a place where work was done with care and where kindness was valued above all. One morning, Tom arrived in the village to sell some livestock. He had traveled for several hours, carrying his animals with care, and was tired from the journey. As he walked along the village path, he noticed a young girl working in the fields. Her back was bent as she carried water from the well, her hands rough from labor, yet she moved with determination. She seemed unaware of the eyes of the villagers, focused entirely on her tasks. There was something in her that caught Tom's attention, something quiet but strong, a spark that many overlooked. He paused for a moment to watch her, intrigued by the way she worked with such diligence and care. Unlike the other villagers who were quick to gossip and judge, Tom did not see her as an unlucky orphan. Instead, he saw someone resilient, someone who faced life's challenges with courage. There was a quiet dignity in her movements, a sense of patience and strength that spoke louder than words. Tom felt a warmth in his heart, an immediate sense of respect and admiration for this young girl who had endured so much yet carried herself with grace. Over the next few days, Tom found reasons to return to the village. He offered to help the villagers with his livestock and shared his knowledge of farming and ranching. But every time he visited, his eyes would seek Leela. He noticed small things, the way she smiled when a child laughed, the care she gave to the animals, the way she offered water to a tired neighbor without asking for anything in return. Each act, though simple, revealed her heart. To Tom, she was unlike anyone he had ever met. She was kind, hardworking, and brave in ways that many people could not understand. Leela, meanwhile, was cautious. She had been disappointed many times before and had learned not to trust easily. People had often approached her with false kindness or empty promises, and her heart had been hurt more than once. When Tom spoke to her for the first time, she kept her distance, polite but guarded. Yet there was something different about him. He spoke with honesty and warmth, and there was no trace of judgment in his words. He did not pity her, nor did he see her as someone who needed charity. Instead, he treated her as an equal, as someone worthy of respect and attention. This was new for Leela, and though she could not yet put it into words, she felt a small flicker of hope in her heart. Days turned into weeks, and Tom's visits became more frequent. He would bring small gifts for the village children or help repair broken fences, but he always took time to speak with Leela. They talked about simple things, the weather, the seasons, and the work they both loved. Tom shared stories of his ranch, his dreams, and the challenges he faced. Leela, in turn, spoke of her life in the village, her hopes, and the dreams she dared not voice aloud. Slowly, a friendship began to grow. It was a quiet, steady bond, built on trust, respect, and shared values. The villagers noticed this new connection, and as usual, they were quick to judge. Some whispered that a poor rancher showing interest in an orphan girl was unusual, even foolish. Others warned Tom that she would bring trouble, that her lack of family and wealth made her an unsuitable match. But Tom paid no attention to the gossip. He had come to see Leela for who she truly was, not for her family, her wealth, or the opinions of others. He admired her resilience, her kindness, and her unwavering spirit. In his eyes, she was priceless. One afternoon, Tom accompanied Leela to the river, where she often went to fetch water and gather her thoughts. The sun was warm, and the river sparkled like a ribbon of silver. They walked together, sharing stories and laughter, and for the first time, Leela felt a sense of ease she had never known. She could be herself around Tom, without fear of judgment or ridicule. He listened to her, encouraged her, and treated her as if her life, her dreams, and her feelings mattered. In that moment, Leela realized that she had found someone who saw her heart, not her circumstances, someone who valued her for who she truly was. As their friendship deepened, Tom began to help Leela in small but meaningful ways. He would bring extra food for her when he visited, offer advice on how to make her work easier, and protect her from the harsh words of the villagers. Leela, in turn, shared her knowledge of the village, introduced him to the people she trusted, and slowly allowed him into her world. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a quiet bond that neither rushed nor forced, but grew naturally with each passing day. One day, while walking through the fields together, Tom noticed how the villagers continued to treat Leela with indifference or contempt. He saw the sadness in her eyes, the way she had learned to carry loneliness as a part of her daily life. Without saying much, he reached out and held her hand, a simple gesture that spoke volumes. Leela felt a warmth she had never known, a feeling of safety and care that seemed impossible after so many years of rejection. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, someone could see her worth. Their bond did not grow without challenges. Some villagers tried to interfere, spreading rumors and questioning Tom's intentions. Leela feared that their friendship might be disrupted, that once again she would be left alone and unprotected. But Tom remained steadfast. He was not deterred by gossip or fear. He continued to treat Leela with respect, kindness, and patience. His actions spoke louder than words, showing her that he genuinely cared and that he would not abandon her, no matter what others thought. Through these days, Leela began to understand the meaning of true friendship and trust. She realized that not everyone who entered her life would hurt or disappoint her. Some people, like Tom, came with open hearts, ready to see her as she was, ready to value her for her courage, her kindness, and her resilience. It was a revelation for Leela, who had spent most of her life feeling invisible, unwanted, and unloved. Tom's presence brought a sense of hope and possibility, a feeling that her life could be more than mere survival. By the end of these weeks, the friendship between Leela and Tom had grown into something meaningful. It was a bond built on respect, trust, and shared experiences. Leela felt lighter, more confident, and more hopeful than she had in years. Tom, too, realized that his admiration for Leela was deepening into something more profound. He had come to care for her deeply, not because she was beautiful or wealthy, but because she was strong, kind, and courageous. He had found in her a partner in spirit, someone whose heart matched his own in honesty and warmth. Though neither of them could fully understand what the future held, it was clear that their lives were now intertwined in ways that neither could ignore. Leela, who had spent years feeling invisible, had finally found someone who truly saw her. Tom, who had traveled across villages seeking purpose and honesty, had discovered a heart that resonated with his own. Together, they began a journey that would change both their lives, a journey that would teach them about love, courage, and the power of seeing people for who they truly are. And so, in the quiet rhythm of village life, amidst dusty roads and simple houses, a remarkable bond had formed. It was not built on wealth, social status, or expectations. It was built on the recognition of true worth, the respect for character, and the kindness that comes from a genuine heart. For Leela, this was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with hope, trust, and the possibility of a life where she would finally be seen, valued, and cherished. Life in the village carried on as usual, but for Leela, things were beginning to change in ways she had never imagined. Her days were still filled with chores, work, and the quiet loneliness she had known all her life. Yet now, there was a new presence in her life, a kind and humble young rancher named Tom, who had begun to see her in a way no one else had. Their friendship had grown steadily over weeks, built on trust, respect, and shared understanding. Leela had slowly allowed herself to enjoy his company, feeling a sense of safety and warmth she had never known. But life had a way of testing even the strongest hearts, and soon, Leela would face challenges that would reveal her true strength. One bitterly cold winter morning, as snow lightly dusted the village and the wind cut sharply through the narrow streets, Leela was out in the yard carrying water for her younger cousins. The villagers kept to their homes, avoiding the chill, but Leela had no choice. The small garden and the household chores did not stop for the cold. She moved carefully, balancing the heavy buckets, her hands numb from the icy metal. Her cousins watched quietly, too young to help effectively, and her relatives were inside, indifferent to her struggle. Leela's back ached, and the wind stung her cheeks, but she pressed on. She was used to hard work, but she was not used to being completely alone in her burdens. As she walked back toward the house, one of the younger children tripped and fell in the snow. Leela rushed to help, her own body trembling from cold, and lifted the child gently. Suddenly, she felt a sharp pain in her side and realized she had caught a severe chill. Her strength was failing, and she could barely make it inside. For the first time in a long while, she felt the weight of her loneliness keenly. Nobody had come to help her, nobody had offered comfort or concern. She realized how vulnerable she truly was, and a quiet fear settled in her heart. Tom had been in the village that day, checking on his livestock and making sure everything was ready for the coming winter. He had noticed Leela early that morning, working tirelessly despite the freezing temperature, and he had smiled quietly, admiring her dedication. But as the day passed, he began to notice her absence and grew concerned. It was unusual for her not to appear in the usual places, and he instinctively felt that something might be wrong. Leaving his tasks temporarily behind, he went to the small house where Leela lived, calling her name softly. When Tom arrived, he found Leela collapsed near the door, pale and shivering. His heart clenched at the sight. He immediately knelt beside her, checking if she was all right. Leela tried to speak, but her words were weak, and tears formed in her eyes. It was a moment of helplessness that she was unaccustomed to sharing with anyone. Tom gently lifted her into his arms, careful not to hurt her, and carried her inside. He wrapped her in blankets, warmed her with a fire, and gave her water to sip slowly. For the first time, Leela felt the profound relief of being cared for by someone who genuinely understood her needs. Over the next few days, Tom stayed by her side, nursing her back to health. He brought warm food, checked her temperature, and made sure she rested properly. Leela, who had spent her life caring for others, felt awkward being cared for herself, but she could not deny the comfort she felt in his presence. His dedication and kindness touched her deeply. She began to see that he was not just a friend, but someone who valued her life, someone who would not abandon her in times of need. Each day, her trust in him grew, and a quiet sense of gratitude blossomed in her heart. As Leela recovered, Tom began to reflect on their friendship and what she truly meant to him. He realized that his feelings for her had grown beyond mere admiration or friendship. He admired her courage, her resilience, and the way she carried herself despite the hardships she had faced. He saw the strength in her gentle spirit, the way she gave love freely even when it had been denied to her. In his heart, he knew that he wanted to protect her, to support her, and to make her a part of his life in a deeper, more permanent way. But Tom also understood that his decision would not be simple. The villagers would gossip, and many would judge him for associating with an orphan girl. He had very little himself, and offering a life of security and respect to Leela would require sacrifice. Yet he could not ignore the truth he felt in his heart. He could not let fear of judgment or the opinions of others prevent him from doing what was right. Leela deserved more than rejection and loneliness. She deserved love, care, and the chance to live a life where she was valued for who she truly was. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, Tom spoke to Leela in a quiet, heartfelt voice. He told her that he cared deeply for her, that he admired her strength and kindness, and that he wanted to stand by her, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Leela listened, her heart pounding, unsure if she dared hope for such a promise. She had been disappointed so many times before that her instincts warned her to be cautious. But as she looked into Tom's eyes, she saw sincerity, honesty, and a warmth that could not be faked. She felt a sense of safety she had never known, and a small, fragile hope began to grow inside her. In the following days, Tom began to help Leela in ways he had never done before. He would accompany her to the well, carry heavy loads for her, and quietly defend her when villagers made hurtful remarks. Leela began to realize that his presence in her life was more than friendship. It was protection, care, and genuine concern. She felt a mix of relief and gratitude, knowing that she no longer had to face the world entirely alone. Tom's actions spoke louder than words, showing her that she was not just seen, but valued, respected, and cherished. Despite the growing bond between them, challenges still arose. Some villagers continued to whisper behind Leela's back, questioning Tom's motives and warning her against trusting him too much. Leela felt torn, caught between the habit of self-protection she had developed over years of rejection and the desire to accept the kindness and love being offered to her. Yet, every time she hesitated, Tom remained patient, never forcing her, never judging her fears. His steady presence allowed her to slowly let go of doubt and begin to embrace the possibility of a life where she could be cared for and supported. It was during one particularly cold night, when the wind howled outside and the snow blanketed the village, that Leela truly understood the depth of Tom's commitment. He stayed by her side, tending to the fire, bringing her warm food and offering words of comfort. She looked at him, realizing that he had given her something she had longed for her entire life, someone who would never abandon her, someone who would stand by her in moments of vulnerability. In that moment, Leela's heart opened in a way it had never done before. She felt a sense of belonging, safety, and hope that she had once believed was impossible. Tom, too, knew that his feelings for Leela had reached a point where he could no longer remain silent. He wanted to give her more than friendship. He wanted to claim her as part of his life, to offer her a place where she would be respected, loved, and valued. He understood the risks, the sacrifices, and the challenges they would face, but he also knew that he could not ignore the truth in his heart. Leela deserved a life filled with care and dignity, and he wanted to be the one to give it to her. By the end of this chapter in their lives, Leela and Tom's bond had strengthened in ways that were deeper than either could have imagined. It was no longer just a friendship based on mutual respect. It had become a connection rooted in trust, care, and the recognition of each other's worth. For Leela, who had spent years feeling invisible and unwanted, it was a revelation that someone could truly see her heart. For Tom, it was a realization that he had found someone whose spirit resonated with his own, someone whose courage, kindness, and strength he could admire and cherish forever. And so, amidst the cold winds, snow-covered paths, and quiet village life, a turning point had arrived. Leela had begun to understand that she was no longer entirely alone, and Tom had decided that he would do everything in his power to protect, care for, and support her. Together, they were beginning a journey that would test their courage, deepen their bond, and eventually lead them to a future neither had dared to imagine before. Winter had begun to loosen its grip on the village, leaving behind a landscape that was both harsh and beautiful. The snow melted slowly, revealing the dry earth beneath, and the first signs of spring began to appear in the fields. Leela had regained her strength after the severe illness that had struck her in the coldest weeks, and she moved about her daily tasks with renewed energy. Yet her life had changed in ways she could not have imagined. Tom's presence had become a constant, steadying force, one she had come to rely on and trust more than she had allowed herself to trust anyone before. Tom, for his part, felt a growing certainty about his feelings for Leela. Over the weeks of tending to her, protecting her, and sharing quiet moments by the river and the fields, he had realized that he could not imagine life without her. Her courage, kindness, and quiet strength had touched him deeply, and he knew that what he felt went far beyond friendship. He wanted to give her more than comfort and protection. He wanted to give her a life where she would be valued, respected, and loved. He wanted to give her his name, his home, and his heart. But this decision was not simple. Tom was a poor rancher. His life was modest, his means limited, and he knew that offering Leela a secure and happy life would require sacrifice. He also knew that the villagers would gossip and judge, questioning why a humble man like him would choose an orphan girl whom everyone else had rejected. Yet none of this mattered to him. He had come to see Leela for who she truly was, and he was determined to act on his feelings, no matter the consequences. One sunny afternoon, Tom visited Leela while she was tending the small vegetable garden behind her house. He watched her carefully, noticing the way she moved with grace and diligence. He admired her hands, calloused from hard work, and the gentle smile she offered to the younger children who played nearby. Leela looked up and noticed him standing quietly at the edge of the garden. She felt a flutter of nervousness, unsure of what he wanted to say. Tom approached slowly, his expression calm but full of intention. "Leela," he said softly, "I have something important to tell you." Leela paused, setting down her tools. Her heart raced, unsure whether to feel fear, excitement, or hope. Tom continued, "I have come to care for you deeply. I see your heart, your strength, and your kindness. You are worth more than anyone has ever recognized, and I want to spend my life with you. I want to give you my name, my home, and my support, not because you need it, but because I want to share my life with you." Leela felt her breath catch. These words were unlike anything she had ever heard. She had spent years believing that no one wanted her, that her orphan status made her unworthy of love or family. And yet, here was Tom, a humble rancher, offering her exactly what she had dreamed of silently in her heart. His words were not flattery or pity. They were sincere, honest, and filled with care. For the first time, Leela allowed herself to believe that she could be loved and valued for who she truly was. Tom took her hand gently in his, looking into her eyes with steady determination. "I cannot promise a life of wealth or luxury," he said, "but I can promise you respect, care, and a home where you are never alone. I want to face life's hardships with you by my side. Will you let me do that? Will you allow me to give you my last name and make you part of my life?" Tears welled up in Leela's eyes, but this time they were tears of hope and joy, not of sadness or fear. She had dreamed of someone seeing her heart, but she had never dared to hope it could happen. She nodded slowly, a quiet smile spreading across her face. "Yes," she whispered, I will." In that simple moment, a bond was made that would withstand the judgments of the village, the hardships of life, and the challenges of the future. The news of Tom's declaration spread quickly through the village, as news in small communities always does. Some villagers were shocked, questioning why a poor rancher would choose an orphan girl that no one else wanted. Others whispered doubts and speculated about motives. Yet Tom's sincerity and Leela's quiet dignity began to change minds. Those who observed the pair closely could see the genuine care and respect in their interactions. Slowly, people began to understand that this union was not about wealth, status, or appearances. It was about character, love, and mutual respect. The ceremony itself was small and humble. Tom and Leela stood at the edge of the ranch, with a few trusted neighbors witnessing the moment. There were no lavish decorations, no grand feast, only the warmth of the sun, the gentle breeze, and the quiet promise of a life shared together. Tom gave Leela his last name, and in doing so, he symbolically offered her protection, dignity, and the recognition she had long been denied. Leela, in turn, accepted him fully, bringing her kindness, courage, and heart into this new chapter of her life. In the days that followed, their lives began to change in small but meaningful ways. Leela felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. She walked through the village with her head held high, no longer weighed down by whispers or rejection. Tom supported her in every way he could, helping with the work around the house and the ranch, and standing by her side in moments of difficulty. Together, they created a life that, though simple, was rich in love, trust, and shared purpose. Leela also began to notice changes in the villagers' behavior. People who had once dismissed her now treated her with respect. Children smiled and ran to greet her, and neighbors offered help when she needed it. It was not sudden, nor was it universal, but the transformation was real. Tom's courage to stand by Leela had challenged the villagers' prejudices, showing them that a person's worth was not determined by family, wealth, or social standing, but by character, heart, and the way they treated others. In the quiet moments of each day, Leela and Tom reflected on the journey that had brought them together. They remembered the long weeks of growing trust, the times of hardship, and the moments of shared laughter and hope. Leela realized that her life, once defined by loneliness and rejection, had been transformed by someone who saw her true worth. Tom, for his part, felt a deep satisfaction in knowing that he had chosen the right path, one guided by honesty, respect, and love. Together, they were stronger than they had ever been alone. Even as challenges continued, harsh weather, village gossip, and the daily demands of life on a modest ranch, Leela and Tom faced them together. Each hardship became easier because they supported one another. Each moment of joy became richer because they shared it with someone who truly understood them. Their union was a reminder that love is not measured by wealth, status, or appearances, but by the courage to stand by someone, the patience to understand them, and the kindness to cherish them. By the end of this chapter in their lives, the village had begun to see Leela differently. She was no longer just the orphan girl who had been overlooked and dismissed. She was Leela, the girl who had found love and respect through courage, kindness, and the support of a humble but honorable rancher. Tom's choice had not only changed Leela's life, but had begun to shift the attitudes of those around them, creating a ripple effect of understanding, respect, and hope in the small community. And so, in the warmth of the spring sun, amidst the modest fields and simple homes of the village, Leela and Tom began a new chapter. It was a chapter defined not by wealth or status, but by love, trust, and the courage to see beyond appearances. Leela had found her place in the world, and Tom had found a partner whose heart matched his own. Together, they faced the future with hope, strength, and the knowledge that true worth is recognized not by the world, but by those who see with their hearts. Spring had fully arrived in the village, bringing warmth, fresh greenery, and a sense of new beginnings. The snow had melted completely, revealing the dusty paths and small gardens that had been hidden all winter. For Leela, life had changed in ways she had never dared to imagine. She was no longer the lonely orphan girl who had been overlooked by everyone. She was now Leela, the girl who had been chosen, loved, and respected by Tom, the humble rancher whose heart had seen her true worth from the beginning. Their life together began modestly but filled with happiness. Tom's small ranch became a home for both of them. There was no luxury, no grand furnishings, just a cozy house, a small garden, a few animals, and the warmth of love and respect that filled every corner. Leela felt a sense of belonging that she had never known, a feeling of safety that allowed her heart to fully open. She could work in the garden, tend to the animals, and cook meals, but now she did so alongside someone who truly cared, someone who saw her effort and valued it. Every morning, Leela and Tom would wake early. Tom would check on his animals while Leela prepared breakfast. Together, they worked in the fields and the garden, laughing and talking as they shared the simple joys of life. Leela sometimes reflected on the life she had once known, the long hours of loneliness, the whispers of the villagers, and the endless work without recognition. And now, here she was, sharing her days with someone who truly respected her, someone who treated her not as an orphan or a burden, but as a partner in life. The villagers, too, began to see the change in Leela. Slowly but surely, their attitudes shifted. People who had once ignored or dismissed her now greeted her with respect. Some young girls, who had previously looked down on her, came to seek her advice on managing their households or caring for children. Neighbors who had once whispered doubts began to ask for her help in planting gardens, caring for animals, and organizing small village tasks. Leela's life had become an example of resilience, kindness, and courage, showing everyone that true worth was not measured by wealth or social standing, but by character and heart. Tom's decision to stand by Leela had not only changed her life, it had begun to inspire others. Families who had been rigid in their judgments began to reconsider their own prejudices. They saw that love and respect could exist without wealth or status, and they learned to value kindness and courage more than they had before. Leela and Tom's partnership became a quiet lesson to the village, that seeing the true heart of a person was more important than judging them by circumstances beyond their control. Leela herself grew in confidence. She started to take on more responsibilities at the ranch, managing the garden and helping Tom with bookkeeping for the livestock sales. She became skilled in caring for the animals, ensuring they were healthy and well-fed. Her gentle nature made her beloved by the neighboring villagers, who began to recognize her wisdom and reliability. She had transformed from a lonely, overlooked girl into a respected and admired woman, all because someone had believed in her and given her a chance to shine. Even the children of the village looked up to her. They would run to greet her when she walked by, asking for stories, lessons, or small help with chores. Leela would kneel down to speak to them, listening patiently and offering guidance. She found joy in teaching them, sharing her knowledge and kindness, and showing them that caring for others could bring happiness even in the simplest of acts. Tom would often watch from a distance, smiling quietly at the way she interacted with the children, realizing that her heart was as big as he had first noticed when he saw her in the fields. Their evenings were quiet and comforting. After a long day of work, Leela and Tom would sit by the small fire in their home, sharing a simple meal and talking about the day's events. Sometimes they would plan small improvements for the ranch or discuss dreams for the future. Leela often thought about the life she had once imagined, filled with loneliness and rejection, and now she felt gratitude and happiness that she could never have expected. She had found not just love but partnership, respect, and a home filled with warmth. As the months passed, Leela and Tom continued to grow closer. Their relationship was not based on wealth, appearances, or social expectations. It was built on trust, shared effort, and the recognition of each other's worth. They celebrated small victories together, like a successful harvest, the birth of a calf, or a village child learning to read. Each small moment brought them closer and strengthened their bond. They had found a life together that was simple in material things, but rich in love, respect, and joy. The villagers slowly accepted Leela's new status, realizing that she had found happiness and stability through courage, perseverance, and the support of someone who truly cared. The older villagers, who had once doubted her, began to share her story with younger generations, emphasizing the importance of seeing people for who they are rather than judging them by circumstance. Leela had become a symbol of hope, showing that life could change for the better when someone had courage, patience, and kindness. Tom and Leela also began to help others quietly. They would support struggling families in the village, sharing advice, offering assistance with work, and occasionally giving small gifts when needed. Leela's own experiences of loneliness and rejection gave her a deep understanding of the hardships others faced. She approached each situation with empathy, offering care without judgment. Tom admired her even more for this, seeing that her heart had remained open despite the difficulties she had endured. Their home became a place of warmth and hospitality. Neighbors would visit, seeking guidance, sharing news, or simply enjoying a meal together. Leela's presence brought joy and comfort, and Tom's steady nature offered reassurance and support. Together, they created a space where people felt welcome, valued, and respected. Their home was simple, yet it radiated happiness, demonstrating that true richness comes from love, trust, and kindness, rather than material wealth. One afternoon, as Leela walked through the village market, she noticed a young girl being teased for being an orphan, much like she had been years before. Leela stopped, approached the girl gently, and offered words of encouragement and support. She shared her own story, showing the girl that her circumstances did not define her worth. The child's eyes filled with hope, and Leela realized that her own journey could now serve as inspiration for others. She had come full circle, from a lonely, rejected orphan to a respected woman whose courage and kindness could help others find hope and strength. Tom watched her during these moments with pride. He had always believed in Leela's worth, and seeing her grow into a confident, kind, and respected woman brought him immense joy. Together, they had not only built a life for themselves, but had also begun to transform the village's understanding of love, respect, and human worth. Their story became an example that spread quietly but surely, touching hearts and changing perspectives. As the sun set each evening, painting the sky with shades of gold and pink, Leela and Tom would sit together, reflecting on their journey. They spoke of the challenges they had faced, the kindness they had shared, and the lessons they had learned. Leela often thought about the years of rejection and loneliness, and she realized that those hardships had made her stronger, more compassionate, and more grateful for the love she had found. Tom knew that he had made the right choice in standing by her, and together they felt a deep sense of fulfillment and happiness. In time, Leela and Tom's life continued with a quiet, steady joy. They faced difficulties, as all lives do, but together they overcame them. Their bond remained unshakable, built on trust, respect, and love. Leela had found not only a husband, but also a partner, someone who valued her heart above all else. Tom had found someone whose courage, kindness, and resilience inspired him every day. Their life was simple, yet it was rich with meaning, purpose, and love. The village, once quick to judge and dismiss, had slowly transformed in its understanding. They learned that true worth is not measured by wealth, social connections, or family background, but by character, courage, and kindness. Leela and Tom had not only created a life together, they had inspired change, showing that love and respect can overcome prejudice and social expectations. Their story became a quiet legend in the village, a reminder that every heart deserves recognition, care, and a chance to flourish. And so Leela's journey, from the lonely orphan girl who had been overlooked to a respected woman who had found love, home, and purpose, reached its full bloom. Her life was no longer defined by rejection or whispers of the villagers, but by courage, kindness, and the love of someone who truly saw her worth. Together with Tom, she had built a life filled with hope, joy, and inspiration. Their story became a testament to the power of seeing people for who they truly are, the strength of the human heart, and the life-changing impact of love, patience, and courage.